Hey guys, it's week 2, and we are back with our totally unorthodox devotional planner, our 12-month and weekly growth workbook, devotional, and women's leadership devotional planner. We are going through the 12 women boss leaders that we see in the Bible and following them through how they explore their own leadership skills and how we can grow as women leaders. We are in January, week 2, and we're focusing on Esther and God's expectations. How do we figure out what God is expecting from our lives? And so, you know what, Dr. Lily, I don't really know. I'm still trying to figure it out. I feel like, remember in 2015, one year I said to you, what are your goals for this year? And you said, Tiffany, the one thing I know is I don't know nothing. That's how I feel. I don't know nothing. So how do we figure out week 2, why is God looking at us and what does he want from us?
So yeah, what does God want with me? Like, that's a real question. Why me? Like, what? Why am I so important? Like, what do you want, God? Just tell me what you want. So we're gonna focus on Matthew 22 verses 37 through 40th, and I'm gonna go ahead and read it now. It states that Jesus answered him, "Love the Lord your God with every passion of your heart, with all the energy of your being, and with every thought that is within you. This is the great and supreme commandment. And the second is like it in importance. You must love your friend in the same way that you love yourself. Contained within these commandments, to love you will find all the meaning of the law and the prophets." And so what the heck does that mean, Tiff?
That's a lot. You said
That's
a whole lot of words.
So basically what the Lord is saying here is that God tells us that there's 2 things that we need to do. We need to love him, be about him, and we need to love our neighbors like we love ourselves. We need to love others like we love ourselves.
That's too much.
That's a lot. That's a lot because you know what? Some people don't even love themselves that much. There was a time when I didn't love myself that much either.
And if you don't love yourself, where are we giving all this unconditional love from?
Absolutely. It's like you're trying to make something out of nothing, which is impossible by our standards. So really, God is the first step to this is definitely the way that I was able to find loving myself and accepting myself, good, bad, and the ugly, was really to love on God, was really to spend time with the Lord, was to read the scriptures, was to do my devotionals, go to church and praise and worship. Those were the things that allowed me to be in a place of accepting who I am, of accepting my flaws and committing to working on those. Have I achieved it? No. Does anyone ever achieve it like completely? Absolutely not. But working on these things, we achieve some of those things and we improve in ways that then make us available to serve God's kingdom in the way that God intended us to serve God's kingdom. So, loving on God, that's the one answer to what God wants with you. He wants you to know him like he knows you. And at first that sounds like super annoying and like, oh my God, I'm talking to a blank room and I'm reading all these words and I have reading comprehension issues, so I don't understand what's being said. Like at first this is sort of like a behavior thing, a behavior change. Just take 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day to say, you know what, I'm going to sit here in silence and I'm just going to tell you my thoughts. And let that develop itself. Don't force it. Don't feel guilt and shame around it.
That's serious. You told me that in the beginning and I became habitual and I started practicing that. And then I used to fall asleep in the middle of devotions nonstop. If you fall asleep, that's okay. Do it again tomorrow.
Right.
It's literally like training and exercise. Do it again.
Do it again. And that can look really, I know that we have this picture of like, oh my God, praying and sort of like on your knees, on your bed, and there's definitely a time for that and a moment for that. But prayer could be like, we're in the middle of a meeting and like, yo, this guy over here across the table is really irking me and like his comments are mad disrespectful, but I'm just going to stay quiet. I'm like, God, please take control. Please take the wheel. That can be a prayer. And I know that we use it as like nonchalant and like you know, in just daily living and talking that we say, oh God, like God help me with this. But really there is meaning behind that, and being a little bit more intentional about that. Like you don't feel like getting up one day because everyone's annoying. That's my word, by the way, guys. I find everything annoying. So don't like, when I say that, it's meaning like bothersome, right?
No, that she really means it. Everything annoys her. That's that's what that means.
Like when I wake up and I don't want to deal with life, right? You know, just like, God, like give me the strength today. Like I just need you to help me get to the coffee pot. Like,
But what happens, like, how do we get there, right? I can't love and I can't understand and I can't move another step. I used to read this, right? And my mother used to say, oh, agape love. And I would just try so hard to love, but it wasn't natural to me. And so I would mess it up every step of the way. It was kind of like either shunning people because I didn't understand them and I only loved in my love language, or it was like in this unnatural, what's that? Remember the Tiny Toons that used to hug people really tight and squeeze them till they popped because she didn't know how to love well, right? It was one or the other. I kind of feel like until you do the work to really heal, right, and understand that and accept God's love in your life, that he could love this wretched sinner, that he could truly accept me with all my failures. I don't know how to love other people. I don't think I did love other people until I really learned to heal from that.
yeah, and that healing comes from spending time with God. That
Yes.
healing comes from meditating in the Lord, reading your Bible, praise and worship, um, you know, having conversations with other people about scriptures, devotion. It just comes from you immersing yourself into, and that does not come off the rip, right? Like it starts 5 minutes and then it becomes like, oh my God, I need this or I can't function. And then it's like the moment, like I remember the day where I felt like, oh my God, I have got to go to church today because I have the need to praise and worship, right? Like I want to go say thank you. Like, and it kind of, I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, what
Yep.
kind of got into me? But it's just this overwhelming need to understand that God makes everything spin, right? And
Period.
so it naturally grows. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes commitment and hard work. But I don't know of any other way where you can come to learn what your gifts are, learn to be obedient, learn to love yourself without necessarily giving yourself that freedom to connect with him.
So part of it is too, like, even when we figure out that God really loves us and we embrace that and we start to build that relationship with God, then it's a constant battle to show up in that way, right? In the ways or the areas of our life that we're not used to. So I've learned, and this is a problem, right? Like we all know Tiffany's a workaholic. So retirement has been a transition for me, right? But I've learned that I have lacked showing love in certain areas because I've overly compensated in other areas. My children being one example, very honestly, right? The question this week from the growth workbook is, what areas of your life do you think you can demonstrate more love? Last year in 2020 was a prime example of God forcefully saying to me, where can you demonstrate more love? And for me, it was my family, right? I kept thinking that if we made enough money, if we built enough businesses, if we had enough large teams, I thought that the more teams we had, the less work we would have. It didn't work that way. It was the exact opposite. So I had to show up for my friends and my family in different ways because I wasn't showing love the way they needed me to show love. Dr. Lily, what 2021, we're on a brand new tip, right? What areas do you want to start showing love in more and paying more attention to showing up in?
Definitely, you know, my family. Like God is the most important, you know, thing in my life, but right under that is my family, meaning my, you know, my husband and my daughter. And so I always fail, right? I always come short. And so for 2021, really something that I wanted to, you know, focus on is definitely working on my relationship with God, and secondly working on my relationship with my husband and my daughter, and being a parent, which I take as a very like a responsibility given to me by God. I am responsible and have to give counts for this child, you know, of how she was raised and how she, you know, how she was taken care of to the Lord. So that's really important to me. And I'm a work in progress on that, right? And so that's a continued thing that I want to work on in 2021. And before we wrap up, I just want to say one little thing, like when just like an example of how you work on things until they become so, right? We talk about giving time to God and praying and all this until this comes naturally, until it feels like it's a part of your life. When I gave birth to my daughter 8 years ago, I really went to a really hard period of postpartum depression. And I remember like going out of my way, like obviously as a psychologist, I understand like prenatal development and neonatal development and sort of childhood development and emotions and the need for appropriate parenting and social emotional development. And I was like, my hands were bound. Like I couldn't give to her what I knew I needed to give to her because of what I was going through. And so I remember one time Tiffany like making fun of me because I was going to a mommy and daughter massage class where I learned how to massage my daughter.
I talk big trash.
And she was like 2 months old and she's like, why are you massaging her? Like, you're the one that needs the massage. But
That's literally what I said.
But I knew that I had to, because I felt like I wasn't connecting emotionally with her due to my symptoms of postpartum, I needed to do things like behaviorally, like I needed to take actions to still connect with her. So I needed to give her a massage every night before bed. I needed to continue breastfeeding her. And there was plenty of conversations that my husband and I went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, you should get off, stop breastfeeding so you can take antidepressants and you can start feeling better.
I told you that. I'm like, you're nuts. Stop breastfeeding. Like,
right. But in that moment, I feel like that was all I could give to her. And so I went through the emotions to just give to her what I thought she needed. And I want to be very clear that I'm not saying that that's what anyone needs to do. That's not psychological recommendations or that.
Nor did I do it. What we're talking about is standing in line with our commitments and our responsibility for love.
Right. So doing things that you feel methodical, feel forced, feel uncomfortable, because that's needed to get to the end goal. And we do that with love, right? Because had this been like a stranger, I like, no, I'm not breastfeeding you. Like, like it would have been a whole different conversation. But out of love,
I'm really glad you're not breastfeeding the stranger. I'm glad at least that's taken care of.
You guys know what I mean. But that's a thing. People do that, but nonetheless.
Whole nother topic.
Yeah, like standing in the gap and doing things that you don't want to do. And that was just one example, like a tangible example of how we do that. And I'm sure if you guys really look at your lives, there's been plenty of times that you've done things for others or for yourself or for people you love that you did not want to do or that you didn't know how to do. And so you just went like read the little book and did the little, just the manual on things, even though it might have been way off, in order to stand in the gap and take care of that issue at the moment. And so that's really what we're saying.
It becomes habitual, right? So we know that if we are intentional about actions, whether or not we want to be invested in it or we are invested in it, it's habitual. And if we continue to provide that behavior, it becomes part of our lifestyle. Same token, remember I used to set my alarm clock because I had an issue with gratitude. I wasn't cognizantly aware all the time of what I had, right? Even it didn't seem like a lot of the time, even though the money was short at the time, God was trying to make sure that I was appreciative and grateful of even the little blessings. And so I had to be very cognizant to set my alarm clock every day at 8:15 a.m. before the morning meeting to say, list your gratitudes and thank God for them every day, right? I no longer have to do that. But for a few years, I physically had to train my brain to list my gratitudes. It's about becoming habitual. We start off with God's relationship and becoming habitual, carving out that time for him and saying, I'm going to do this whether or not I fall asleep or whether or not I feel like it or whether or not I have anything to say, right? The book of Romans tells us, no matter what we're feeling in our heart, our moans and our groans, even if we have no words, God understands. So it's really about just giving him that time and attention, like you said.
Even if you throw yourself back in the bed and you just like, like, if that was your time set up for God and that's what you got today, that's what you got. Like that's what you give. Like God will do something with that. He'll take care of it. Right? Like once you put it out there, it's on him. to do what he wants with that. But you know, we just hope that you guys sort of fill us up with questions if you guys have questions in the comments, or comments or opinions or other perspectives on what we're talking about. Please make sure to reach out, comment, post, because you know, we are a community of women of faith, women based on faith, right, and believers. And so we want to make sure we're encouraging each other and we're showing that same love that God shows us every day and that we're talking about to each other. So
And we
feel
want to be
free.
open to the spirit leading, right? The spirit may lead you with a perspective that we don't see and challenge you in a way that we haven't been challenged. Feel free to share that with us, right? We want to be able to give feedback and encouragement and support one another, right? While we're all on this process, because the process never ends, right? We just grow as we go.
Absolutely. So everyone, thank you for your time. We hope
Thank
that
you,
you're blessed
guys.
with this. You take care and have a great day.
Have a wonderful day, guys. Be blessed.